Welcome to Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show, the show where we feature tech companies operating globally, talking about their solutions and how they make a difference to their customers' businesses. Now, today our conversation is with Sunny Rao. He's a Senior Vice President, Global Sales at Vonage. Now, Vonage was founded in 2001 and is a global leader in cloud communications. Now, Sunny, to tell us more, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. I'm deeply excited to be here. I've heard a lot about Biztech, and this is my first appearance here. I'm really delighted to be speaking to you and the audience you represent.
Thank you, Sunny. Now, for a start, could you give us an overview of Vonage and its history?
Yeah, I think Vonage has a rich history of transforming the way people communicate. Our vision is very simple. It's to accelerate the world's ability to connect. It's a really short phrase, accelerate the world's ability to connect, but it says a lot. Today we power our customers' communications, their conversations, their engagement through our global platform, and we deliver best-in-class, secure, and scalable cloud solutions that cut across APIs, unified communications, contact centers, and conversational commerce, the last one being a new pillar that we added in the last year.
Okay, and I'm going to talk to you about particularly conversational commerce later in the conversation. But for a start, what does your footprint look like in the Asia Pacific region, and who are the key customers, sectors that you go after?
Yeah, we came in very early into the region, and we have a very large presence starting from Australia down south, all the way to Japan, and then covering on the east all the way into Pakistan and including China and India. So we have presence on the ground in each of those major geographies. So we have a very large office in China. We have people on the ground that not only sell, but also support our customers and the expansion of Chinese brands globally. We have the similar setup in Australia, in Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines. Of course, regional headquarters is Singapore, and then in South Korea, and into Japan. And then of course, India. So we have a fairly large presence in Asia Pacific. It's been an exciting journey for us here. When we work with nearly every brand that is transforming or disrupting the industry. So whether you look at industries such as ride hailing and the journey that they have gone through, nearly every ride hailing brand, we're proud to say has been working with Vonage. You look at retail and e-commerce brands, whether they are like Fisher & Paykel down in Australia, Carousel, Zalora, L'Oreal, or any of the large e-commerce brands that have come out of China. Gaming customers like PUBG, events organizers such as Remo, who are trying to redefine how events are conducted, education with HeyHi, Cambly, etc. And of course, telehealth with customers like VisionFlex and Doxy and the others. So really cutting across every industry that's being disrupted.
Okay, that's interesting. So could you kind of drill down and give us some examples of how Vonage helps businesses digitize and enhance their overall customer experience?
Indeed, and this is a very fascinating part of the discussion. Traditionally, a lot of customers built their requirements, or brands built their requirements and said, this is the way we're going to bring all the consumers over to my organization. And they had very siloed approaches. But what has happened, and a little bit tying into the COVID situation as well, is consumers have a mind of their own. They have a social structure of their own. They move in herds, and there are different dynamics that consumers demonstrate. So what happens with brands is they look at it and say, I'm going to get all my customers who are going to call me when they have this problem. They're going to message me when they do something else. When they sign up, I'm going to send them an email. Well, all of that is of no use if you haven't really talked to your consumer and figured out what's the best way they want to communicate with you. And this is where transformation starts, really with the communication journey. So we help our brands with whether they are in the journey of acquiring their customers. So what is the best practice in customer acquisition? How do you make that very frictionless so that you are not putting in so many hoops and gates in the sign up process to sign up for your mobile app, or whether they want to sign up for your service? But yet do that by preventing fraud, because the moment you go online, the first thing that you're going to get impacted with is a lot of fraudulent behavior. So inherently, companies have said, if I want to prevent fraud, I'm going to make the sign-up process really, really hard, ask so many questions. But that's a deterrent to your consumer experience. So how do you find that balance between the two? That's just one example in the acquisition phase of your consumer journey. Similarly, once you've acquired a customer and they want to, interact with you, buy a product with you, how do we simplify that whole process? Do I have to come to your website for everything? Do I have to download the mobile app for everything and go through layers of menus inside your mobile app till I find what I'm looking for in order for me to buy to you? Again, brands have made it very, very difficult for consumers. It's as if consumers are working through a lot of hoops and despite everything are trying to do business with you. And we're on the other side of it saying, make it simple, make it flexible, make it personalized, make it intuitive, make it predictive. And so consumers just say, oh, wow, that was such a great experience that I had with this brand. So that's your interaction journey. And then when you deliver a product or a service and something doesn't go the way the consumer feels should have gone, how do you recover that situation? Again, do I make it very hard or do I make it really simple? Do I make it so simple that I can get more fraudulent behavior, or do I get it just right? So I'm balancing the impact on my brand, but also making sure the consumer experience is not negated. So those are the areas where we help our brands work with us in order to build that kind of journey of experiences that they have with their consumers.
And Sunny, you mentioned a lot of brands which are relatively new brands. They are innovators and stuff, but could you share some examples, perhaps regionally, of how, particularly because of the pandemic, you've really helped an older brand or legacy businesses transform their businesses through your solutions?
Wonderful question. One of the customers I referenced during when I talked about retail was Fisher and Paykel. Really old brand selling consumer electronics goods, really white goods for your home, right? A dishwasher, a washing machine, a dryer, etc. That's what they've been selling, and you would hardly think this is the most exciting, brand to be interacting with digitally.
And all the way in New Zealand.
Exactly, exactly. But think of this. Let's say your washing machine breaks down. Then what happens? And today, once you've mounted your washing machine inside your home, you really don't even know where the manual is. You don't know who to call. You're hoping that little service sticker on that, which said, here's a number to call if you have a problem, is still there or not washed out. You don't know what to do. This is where it starts to become an interesting journey that if I can get to the brand very quickly, engage with them, get my problem resolved, I'm going to stick with that product. So let's say that my washing machine is down, and this happened to me. I had to go and figure out who to call, what number, what's the model number. I don't even know what the model number is unless you really look deep inside. So what Fish and Pickle did was really engage and provide a really simple way for their consumers, whether it was text messaging, where text messaging is prevalent, or using other social chat applications like WhatsApp to be just able to send a photograph and they'll figure out what the model is. You don't have to worry. They will tell you, yes, I know exactly what the nearest service center is. I know where the technician is, and I'm going to get someone to you really quickly. So you don't have to call and wait on the line, being on hold and go through a whole series of prompts trying to figure out and put your zip code in and say, where's the technician? Oh, well, they're going to be available day after tomorrow. What do I do with all my dirty laundry? You don't have to go through that experience. And that's how they transformed, using very simple communication tools that are ubiquitous. Every phone can send a text message, or in many parts of the world where WhatsApp and social messaging channels are more prevalent, people are very astute about using that. It doesn't matter which age bracket you're in. And that's how they built that connect with their audience, their consumers, and started to turn their brand loyalty.
Now, Sunny, that's such an interesting example. So, which brings me to the next question. How has communications platform as a service, how has the landscape changed since the pandemic started?
It's actually two things that have changed. One is disruption. Again, you made a comment, a lot of our customers that we work with are relatively newer brands. Well, these brands have come in because they found an opportunity to reduce the friction that exists in consumer engagement with brands, and therefore they've really transformed the consumer experience. That's really what they've done. And similarly, the second aspect was what happened with the pandemic. This again brought a lot of artificial barriers in your ability to walk up to a branch or a store or to a brand, and therefore you had to inject a digital medium in the middle. What do you do at that time? So both of these are scenarios that accelerated adoption. Prior to that, a lot of large brands went through the traditional cycle of buying. I write a requirements document, I put out a RFP and get some bids. And hopefully, I've captured my 2-year, 3-year plan in that RFP to say, this is my roadmap. Most times brands may have done it, but the industry spectrum changes. And so new dynamics come in. And before you know that, your first release is done with your RFP, the next 2 releases are redundant because they don't matter anymore. The world's changed. And so you get stuck in this very serial way of doing it, what we call as the waterfall method of rolling out projects, which by the time you get through it, it doesn't matter. The world landscape has changed. And so that's where digital communications or digital transformation comes in on a cloud platform. You do not make these holistic bets that say the next 5 years is cast in stone. It gives you the nimbleness to experiment. It also allows you to do it at very low cost because you're doing it primarily on a pay for use. You make no upfront commercial commitments. It is, if you succeed, we succeed as a brand. So by doing that, we're putting skin in the game, but it's not just about the service. We also bring the expertise to our customers. We have people on the ground in every part of the region. We understand the culture, we understand the regulation, we understand consumer behavior. Those are the people that we have on our side that we bring and say, this is how you look at consumer behavior, and this is the way you can actually address consumer behavior and consumer engagement. So we combine, the ability to adopt technology in a very frictionless manner with very low cost and have people who can help you through that journey of addressing your customers' needs.
Now, Sunny, I would love your insights because obviously you have a regional helicopter view and a global view at that, as to what you think the key challenges are faced by APAC businesses, especially legacy businesses, in terms of digital transformation. Is it people? Is it cultural? Is it infrastructure? What are your thoughts?
It's a great question. The number one challenge that I see that a lot of customers face is just being disconnected from their consumer view. They don't spend enough time talking to their consumers. And again, you can do a focus group in one country, but if you're a regional brand, every country has a different culture. So, if you do something in Singapore, it's not the same as doing the same thing in Thailand and in Philippines or in Australia. They're very different behaviors. So, I think brands need to spend more time understanding how their consumers want to interact with them and make it simple. It can't be a one size fits all. When you do that, you also have to look at what is it that I can do today, but what is it that I want to do in a few years from now? And let me give you an example. Companies go down the path of saying, you know what, I'm going to build the world's best mobile application that has every single capability that my business has to offer. What really results is what I call as bloatware. You have a mobile app that becomes so big, it's unwieldy. It tries to address every region, every possibility in every part of the world. That's unviable. So then the next step they go through is, okay, let me find a way in which, based on which region you come from, I'm going to give you only that region's requirements. Well, what happens if I travel then? Let's say I come from Thailand to Singapore. Is my experience the same as Thailand, or am I going to get the experience of services that I get in Singapore? And the moment you go through that, you go, oh my God, maybe I should capture everything everywhere and then look at location-based service. The moment you want location, then I have to address consumer concerns on privacy. Are you tracking me? Do you know everything that I'm doing? So you see, you start to get into all the things that you've not thought about And that's where you have to think through, how am I addressing my consumer behavior? If you talk to the consumer could probably turn around and say, 9 out of 10 times, I just want to be able to call you or send you a message or click a button and just speak to someone. And they can guide me exactly where I want to go with what we call as deep linking. So these are things that if you spend time, brands can prevent over-engineering of solutions. We always try and say, keep it really simple. Keep it simple, engage with the customers, give an excellent experience, and then you can take them into where the content lies, but keep it really simple.
And Sunny, your experience, the example that you shared with your client, Fisher and Paykel, is really what I thought, hitting home, that keep it simple and stupid, because just text messaging, just taking a picture and thinking through that whole customer need solves that problem really easily.
Indeed. And, I've been thinking through all of these, and these are personal experiences, Brian. My TV broke down in the middle of the pandemic. My TV is wall mounted. I couldn't figure out how to dismount it and look at what model number it is. And these days, because of aesthetics, they don't even put any of that on the bezel. So how do you figure out what's gone wrong? Why isn't it working? Who do I call, etc.? So you see, you get through these experiences of how do you solve these problems, and you go, why can't businesses make it really simple for me to communicate with them?
Now, zoom in on something you mentioned early in the conversation around conversational commerce. Tell us a little bit about your Jumper.ai acquisition, and that's a Singapore company, I believe, and your move into conversational commerce.
Indeed, over the years, as things transformed, and it segues from my conversation about the concept of bloatware and making mobile apps too heavy, etc. What we found was consumers, when they were traveling, even prior to COVID, spent a lot of time on a certain set of applications. In fact, we did a little bit of a survey. In fact, I stood outside the terminals in the arrival lounge in Singapore, looking at what people do when they land and get out into the taxi rank. Everyone's looking at their phone. In Singapore, mostly everyone looks at their phone. They don't look at each other, right? Yeah. So they're looking at their phone. And everyone's looking at their phone. And a little survey said, the top applications they're looking at is some sort of social messaging channel first, then they look at their email. Really, that's it. Those are the two things that they're, so one's work and the other is their personal interactions. They're on it. We found that more and more people are spending a lot of time on social messaging channels. That seemed to drive a lot of the interactions. If I wanted to buy something, I would ask a group of friends on social media, whether it was a Telegram group or a WhatsApp group, etc., to get ideas. People were moving into that more so than even search. At the same time, with presence on digital media happening more and more, when you're looking at Instagram, you're looking at Facebook, et cetera, with the amount of time being spent there, brands were starting to advertise a lot more and put their spend as well in digital media. That's what got us thinking and saying, wow, a brand's advertised there. Then they try to figure out, how do I bring my consumer to where I am as a brand? So bring the shopper to the brand. And we said, why don't we reverse that? Bring the brand to where the shopper is. So you reduce the friction. So if I'm spending a lot of time on social media, keep my brand there, but you're already doing the advertisement and you're trying to figure out what the return is, which itself is a very convoluted method today, is I can't figure out, what's the return on investment on digital ad spend. Well, how about we bring all of that together? And that's where we looked at this company called Jumper.ai, based out of Singapore, who had really started to work some transformational capabilities, some statistics there. For example, one of the things that they looked at is your traditional e-commerce website. The use of mobile websites, the same mobile version of that website, was only 12%. The conversion on those websites were 2.8%. Contrast that when you move the same shop or brand onto a social chat channel or into any of these social media channels, that actually transformed from the 12% usage to 89%. From the 2.8% conversion to between 16 to 35% conversion, which means people actually purchase something right there from that point. And where they spent 2.5 minutes on a mobile version of an e-commerce website, they were spending 14 minutes on their social chat, like Instagram or Facebook. So we said today that model was very broken. If you're in a social chat application or you're in a social media application, you like a product, you click, it takes you away from that again to some sort of website where you have then got to go search for that product again in order to buy it. And many times they would even be broken. They would advertise one thing on the social media platform, but the product's not available on your website. And that's just terrible experience. So we said, how about keeping you where you are and complete the entire transaction without ever having to leave a page? And that's where Jumper.ai came in. They said, we will help you there. You like a product, you like a handbag, you like this, this cosmetic, click, opens up within the same ad, complete the entire transaction, including payments, including getting shipment notification, and you're done. You haven't left the page. You continue your social experience and tell all your friends what a lovely experience you had buying from this brand.
You know, Sunny, it's been a fascinating conversation about the customer journey and customer experience. But now I want to focus on the company. What's your plans in the Asia Pacific region in 2022 and 2023?
Excellent. And I'll start from Jumper because, well, that's a good segue because it connects to everything else we're doing. So as we started to talk to a lot of these brands who have deployed, you know, the Jumper platform, one example is L'Oreal. They made a very public announcement. They did, in 24 hours, they did as much sales volume as they used to do in a month. So that's the kind of return that they saw with Jumper. They did 1 month's worth of sales in 24 hours. And they were telling us, this is great. Now, here's a few other things that we want you to add to it. You know, you're buying cosmetics. There are times where you want to have a conversation with a consultant to say, is this the right foundation for my skin tone? Do I need to get something else? I've seen this. Does it really come in the shade that I'm looking for? And they wanted to enable a bit of a video engagement. They said, well, this is all great, but once in a while, my consumer wants to speak to a human being without having to go into the store. So that's kind of gave us the idea of bringing in some of our video capabilities that we have been powering telehealth and education and events and said, why don't you bring it into the shopping experience? So this is now taking things that you have been doing with influencer-led marketing, which is one-way broadcast where an influencer records a video and everyone sees it on YouTube, etc., to being able to do that within your own channel in social media. So think of it like Facebook Live, but now I'm building custom experiences which say, you know what, at 2:30 there is going to be this influencer who is going to come and talk only to my VIP clients. Or I'm in the process of buying this product. I just need to have that one question answered. Is this right for my skin tone? Click a button, do a quick video call, and I can bring in a lot of elements from augmented reality into it, because with that, I can detect your skin tone. I can look at the right foundation that matches your skin tone and give them the right suggestion, even push it into their cart and say, oh, the one you select is not right for you. Now that I've seen you, I know exactly what matches. Here's the right foundation, whether it's be lipstick, you know, foundation, cosmetics, or any other product. So that's kind of how we're transforming and bringing multiple communication elements into enhancing the consumer journey. So that's just one aspect. So when we talk about video, we said, great. During the pandemic, people have had enough number of virtual events. I think people have zoned out because you get into an event, you listen one way, there's someone talking about it, there's very little interactivity. So we said, why don't we make this interactive? And we talked to a lot of our customers who have deployed it, and they said, you know, one of the things that makes it so hard to bring interactivity is I have to do a lot of application development behind the scenes. You know, when the panel's presenting, I need to, you know, broadcast it. Then I need to switch things over into an interactive mode. And we said, we've got to make this all much simpler. So that's when we released our interactive broadcast capability, and we said, oh, up to 15,000 participants, don't have to worry about anything. You can make it fully interactive. For 15,000 participants, you have 100,000 people, no problem. We can provide you broadcast capabilities with very low latencies there. And the people who want to interact automatically can use up to the 15,000 limit. They can start to interact. So we made it simple for developers to build unique experiences. Then we came in and said, well, if I'm doing these, there are other sorts of content. There are polls going on. There is a quiz going on in education. Our telehealth customers said, I want to be able to overlay your X-ray, or, I want to overlay your ultrasound scan when I'm doing it. I want to do that, and I want to record it so you can keep it. Well, that's where we said, well, great. Let's create this capability called the Experience Composer, which is really simple words to say, I'm taking your experience and I'm composing it and giving it to you. So we are able to get all these other elements and make that whole experience very interactive and engaging.
Now, Sunny, it's been a fascinating conversation, and I'm actually going to get to speak to you offline about some of your solutions. Thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Brian, it's been a pleasure. Great questions. Thank you again. And I would be very keen to hear some of the audience feedback as they come. And we'll be happy to address any other particular topics in future sessions.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and we've been speaking to Sunny Rao, Senior Vice President, Global Sales at Vonage, on Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show. This video and podcast will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our various social media platforms. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks again for tuning in.